friends, enemies, and those who haven't decided which one you are. I greet you. Hello. From my studio, the sun has fallen and the stars have risen. It is now night where I am, and from the looks of my calendar, Halloween is fast approaching. One of the traditions I enjoy of Halloween is telling stories, and what better time to tell a story of a ghost-like origin than at night? I feel I should add to that tradition. But before I start the story proper, I feel I should give a prologue, if you will, about my meager story. Although it is not the story that I intend to tell you, I believe it will give you context, dear listener, to my story. I am from a city located in western part of New York State. Quite cold, quite frigid, and it inspired me to some degree to move and find my fortune, not so much in New York State or in America, but in a land overseas, in the land of Japan. While working at many places in Japan, I have met other people who are bitten in their own fashion by the travel bug, and unlike I, who have stayed in Japan, continue to travel to find themselves. I'll hold that story for a moment, because that point is very important. Now, the job that I am doing is teaching English. Not only just to children, but to adults of all ages. Now, if I was to give you a tip about teaching English to adults, I would tell you that it is important to keep the adult speaking. You see, they have already learned a bedrock of grammar for the most part, and they just need to practice and use it. A Halloween lesson that I enjoyed doing was around their belief on ghosts. I would start the lesson off with very simply asking them if the student, believed in ghosts or not. Regardless of the answer, I would follow up with why. Why did they believe? Why didn't they believe in ghosts? Those who said they did believe in ghosts did have some interesting stories, and maybe I will tell those stories at one point, but not today. The next part of this lesson, I would tell the students to tell me a ghost story. Now, for those who answered that they did not believe in ghosts, I would very simply say that in my home of Western New York, there are macabre things, such as skeletons, buried in the main roads. And when they try to renovate the roads, they discover these skeletons. Sad part of the history behind the skeletons is that they were once a certain group of people forced to leave my city by the main roads. And as they were leaving, some did not make the journey and were buried on the spot, for years later to be dug up by construction crew trying to add more tar to the road. That is not a ghost story, but it is a rather macabre story, and I would ask them to try to think of a story likewise. This story falls in both categories, a ghost and a macabre non-ghost story. going back to the subject of the people I have worked with, this particular story deals with a young man named Edward, and we will meet Edward in our next installment. Thank you. Now, before we continue, I hope you don't mind a little bit of house cleaning. I don't often ask for people to like or subscribe to these videos, but it was brought to my attention that there's a algorithm that assists with that, and maybe if you want to hear the rest of the story, you might want to click like or such. And I am on Patreon, I suppose. That is a worthy plug, but that should be for another day. Until next time, sweet dreams.